So I own 100 residential rental properties, and I just bought my first warehouse, which is this 16,000 square foot warehouse behind me. I own about $20 million in real estate today, all using other people's money. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through this warehouse, break down the numbers to you, and tell you why I bought this property. So the property actually came with 5 different buildings on the property. One's a single family house, and then the other 4 are warehouses. I'm standing in the biggest warehouse on the property. It's about 6,000 square feet. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff still here that we gotta get work done. But one of the cool things that I thought about is it has this car lift, and it's still operational and still works. So one of the tenants that might move here might be like a body shop or a car shop or a dealership, maybe one of those things. So we'll see what happens. But plan in here is to clean all this stuff out, clean it up, make it a white box, and then find a tenant to come in. One of the other things inside of this property, we have some office in this building as well. So this office inside of the warehouse, some tenants may want it, some tenants may not. So once we find a tenant that wants to come in here and lease it, we may blow this out and make it all warehouse, or we may keep the office space in here so a business can operate with people inside of the office as well. Now I'm standing in about 4,000 square feet. This entire building, this is one of the 2 units in here right now. So the whole building is about 4,000 square feet. So we may end up blowing out this partitioning wall and making this one unit that rents the entire building, or it may have 2 different tenants in it separately. But I love this because it's complete open concept. There's no pillars or poles in between. So when somebody comes in here, they can build out whatever they want because there's nothing in the way. Building number 3 is about a 3,000 square foot kind of warehouse behind me. It's actually 5 massively oversized parking garages. So right now they're just used as storage units, but it depends who leases the rest of the property. If it's an auto shop or an auto body shop, they may rent these bays as well. So we got to see what kind of happens with that. But right now they're just storage, and if they don't rent them, they're going to stay storage. So this is about another 3,000-ish square foot building, and it's actually 2 floors. So this top floor here is an office space. It's about 1,300 to 1,500 square feet up here. So the good thing is somebody in this property is going to need office, right? And then beneath us is, again, 3 massively oversized 1-car garages again. So depending on who leases all the properties, will determine, what those are used for. It might be storage, it might be car bays. Those are all still TBD. So I get asked all the time, why did I buy a commercial building in today's market? Because everybody thinks that, commercial is, going downhill. You read about it in the news. But the thing is that people don't understand, that's mostly office space, right? Warehouse space is a whole different story. Things that are considered commercial are warehouse, industrial, office, retail, strip center. Those are all considered commercial, right? But warehouse is one of the commercial investments. So in this property, only about 10% of the square feet of the buildings is office space. So if this was all office space, there's no chance I would have bought it, unless I bought it like for free, right? But it doesn't make sense because it's hard to lease those right now. But with this being less than 10%, I think it's a great balance between warehouse and office space, because to operate a business in a 16,000 square foot warehouse, you need to have people to operate that. So you will need some sort of office space along with that. So 10%, I think that's a good balance. So here's the rundown on the building. So I ended up buying this property for about $640,000. And when I bought the property, I ran it as if it was a residential rental property, right? I own about 100 residential rental property units today. This is the first warehouse building. So leading up to closing and after I bought it, I started talking with a lot of commercial brokers. And what I learned was that the rent income that I budgeted for was accurate, right? So I had, about 11 grand a month coming in on this, and that's what they think they can rent these buildings for. So that was good news. But there's huge differences between commercial and residential leasing, right? There's something called triple net leases. So let's go back and look at how residential properties are typically leased. You rent it out for, let's say, for $2,000 a month, and a tenant pays you $2,000 a month. Now, once you get that $2,000 a month, I, as the property owner, am now responsible for the taxes. I'm now responsible for the insurance. If those go up, I'm responsible for the increases as well. I may be responsible to cut the grass. I may be responsible for the dumpsters. I may be responsible for the utilities. I'm definitely responsible for the maintenance, right? So that $2,000 coming in is top line. It's the most perfect world case scenario. And then I have a whole bunch of expenses that come off of that. So that's the residential world. Now on the commercial side, like I mentioned earlier, is something called triple net leases. So what this means is that I can go out there and I can rent a property for, let's say, $11,000 a month, right? So the rent is called base rent, 11 grand a month. The cool thing that happens is you actually add back all those other costs. So on top of the $11,000 a month, the tenants are going to pay for the property taxes. Tenants are going to pay for the insurance. The tenants are going to pay all their own utilities. The tenants are going to pay for their own maintenance. The tenants are going to reimburse me for the snow plowing, for the dumpsters, for the grass cutting, for every expense that happens with the property, except the shell of the property. The HVAC, the walls, the roof, that's on me. Everything else gets added back to the tenant's lease. So for example, instead of paying $11,000 a month and then I have to pay everything out of that, they pay $11,000 a month plus, 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 plus. So they may end up paying $12 or $13 or $14 or $15,000 a month. So it's base rent plus all those other expenses. So think about it like this. If I ran the numbers on this deal as if I was incurring all those expenses, I had 11 a month and then minus all these expenses, but what actually happens is 11 a month plus all those expenses. So you can see how my numbers were vastly wrong and why this is an even better deal than what I thought it was. Now in the residential space, lease terms are typically for 1 year and then it goes month to month. In the commercial space, lease terms are typically for 3 or 5 or sometimes even 10 years, and there's rent increases built into that lease every single year, and it's personally guaranteed. Because if a tenant leaves here on the residential side, you have to try and sue them and try and collect money. Typically they don't have money to collect on, but on the business side, on the commercial side, if it's big enough, right? If it's a big enough deal, tenants will actually, they're fully underwritten, fully approved, credit worthy, everything, and they're personally guaranteeing the entire lease amount. So if it's a 5-year lease at $5K a month, the $60,000 a year times 6 times 5, that's $300,000 in total rent payments that they're going to have to pay. They personally guarantee the entire lease. Even if they leave in year 2, they're still personally guaranteeing and on the hook for the remaining balance. The other great thing about this is when commercial tenants come into properties, they typically can do their own build outs, right? Sometimes the owners do it, sometimes the tenants do it. So our plan with all these buildings is to give it a blank canvas, right? Get all the trash out, maybe paint the exteriors, make it look good on the outside, blank canvas on the inside. So when they come in, if they want to add light fixtures or plumbing fixtures or add a couple office spaces or whatever they want, they're able to come in and do those things themselves, right? So I'm not going to go in and spend a ton of money in renovating this on the interiors because a tenant might not even want what I did. So a tenant comes in, does their own repairs, their own rehab, their own renovation, and then they move 5 years later. Guess what? All those renovations still stay with the properties. So they're actually going to improve your property for you along the way. So here's what you've been waiting for, the actual numbers on the deal. So let's break it down. So the purchase was about $640,000, and then the renovation is going to end up being anywhere between $50,000 and $150,000. It depends on what the tenants want and how much work we have to put into the property. So $50,000 to $150,000. The base monthly rent will be about $11,000 a year. The yearly taxes will be about $12,000 a year. The yearly insurance will be about $7,131 per year. The grass, snow, dumpsters, etc. will be about $3,600 per year, and then the maintenance reserve will be about $13,200 per year. And then property management, this is the only thing that doesn't necessarily get added back to the tenant's rent. So the property management is an expense of mine as the property owners. That's going to be $5,000 per year. So the total additional yearly expenses is $35,931, meaning it's $2,994.25 more per month that the tenant has to pay. So instead of paying $11,000 a month, they're going to be paying $13,994.25 per month. And at the end of the day, commercial values, the value of commercial property is based on what's called a cap rate. And cap rate is based on the income and the expenses of the property. So how I originally ran the numbers and found my ARV, remember, I was going to be the one incurring all those expenses, the property taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, etc. But once I learned that you can add that back, it changed the value of the property. So based on a 7.5% cap rate, on my original numbers, the value of this property was like $1.1 million-ish. After I learned about the triple net leases and you add back all those things, the value is going to be roughly about $1.4 million. So $300,000 of additional value created because using a triple net lease and adding back those expenses back to the tenants. So I actually just flew into Columbus last night to take a look at this property because I saw part of the property back in December around Christmas, but this is my first time today seeing the entire property. And again, this is something I bought a couple weeks ago. So I'm super excited. We're putting together a game plan, figuring out, what goes, what stays, how to turn and make the property look as good as possible. I'm meeting with commercial brokers to game plan about how to, get the most rent out of the property as possible. But it sounds like commercial is going to be way less stressful and way less moving pieces and tenants and evictions and background checks and turnovers, et cetera, than the residential is. So now that you've learned a little bit more about residential and commercial spaces, comment below and let me know which one you like. Do you want to buy more on the residential side or more on the commercial side? Because I'm starting to like a little bit more on the commercial side. So we'll see how this deal turns out, and we'll see if we go out and continue to buy more. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you can get more information.